Many years have passed since our last install video, so we're going to do some more. This Jeep just came in last night. We'll be tearing it down today. This represents a pretty typical customer of ours. We got some rock rails, AEV wheels, bumper. This is not a very good setup here. This is a Warren power plant. You can see it's blocking a lot of his grill. You don't want to do this whether you're running a V8 or a V6. So he's already getting a different bumper, and he's going to sink it down. But for right now, we're just going to concentrate ourselves on the build. Like most of our builds, these vehicles come in and they're not stock. So the first thing I do is I take a look at what he's got. He's got an S-Pod, which a lot of the vehicles we work on have. S-Pods can help you hook up things like lockers and compressors, and he does have an ARB compressor here. We're going to remove that. I'm not a big fan of the engine compartment mounted compressors. We've actually saw a dual ARB catch on fire in one. We're going to put a dual ARB under his passenger seat. It's got a blower on this, and this is not a normal production blower. This was a blower that was built by a guy in Colorado, and it looks to me like he machined an adapter out of some aluminum plate to go to the intake manifold. And I haven't driven it yet. I'm going to drive it, but this is the V6 blower off of Vortec, an old GM Vortec V6. Got a snorkel. We have done snorkels before, and we may just do a snorkel on this one, I'm not sure. Optima Battery. This is an old Optima battery, so it might be okay, but you guys that have new Optima batteries, be careful. We have had a lot of issues with the newer Optima batteries. In fact, we've had a lot of issues with the newer Optima batteries. So if you have a weird electrical problem, reduced power, or odd drivability, look at your battery and check it carefully. PSC, not done in the best manner. I believe he wants to ditch the PSC because we're only running 35-inch tires here, and he doesn't need it, and he's been having some issues with it. This is his supercharger controller here that we're going to get rid of all that. We're going to try to clean a lot of this wiring up, and that's pretty much it. Let's see what we got inside. Yeah, we got the super chips inside, so we'll have to work with that. CB, roll cage, really nothing that, no interferences that aren't easily dealt with. This is a Sahara. We often see hardware missing, as you can see here on the battery tray. Wires that are a mess that we need to clean up. And guys don't realize that this is part of what we do during a swap, as we try to clean up whatever they've done. These ARB plastic lines are often melted where they go down along the frame rail next to the exhaust. So we run them outside of the frame rail, cover them with heat tape, sometimes even run stainless steel lines if the customer wants. So all this is part of our swap, is cleaning up the mess, and he's going to have a lot of additional lights. I know he has rock lights. He's got lights on his mirrors. Winch, I believe he has a wireless controller. So these are all things that we have to take into consideration. If I remember correctly, this Jeep is getting an LS3. Might be a 6-liter, but either way, as we go along with this build, you guys can follow along. Here's something that will immediately stick out to me. Here we have a power wire going to a stereo or something, and it's run right along this sharp edge right here, and you can see that the wire's been cut. So this is something we need to address. The way this PSC is mounted just is not good. Smashed up against the air intake like that. So when we do a swap, this is all part of it. We'll come back, and this video is going to be a little different in that the guys are going to do some filming, and then I'm going to do some voiceover. I think that's going to work out better than me doing both. Here he's got a power steering cooler, which probably isn't doing too much since it's right behind the winch. These are the things you need to think about when you do a swap, how to make everything work properly and efficiently. We know that this vehicle has remote start because he's got the hood pin, so we got to make sure that remains functional. These are all little things that I look at and I have in my head before we do a swap. So I'm going to go out and do a test drive on it just to make sure everything works, air conditioning, cruise control, before we tear it down. And then we'll come back with some videos. So here we are in our test drive. First thing I notice about this V6 is just how gutless it is off the line. With a V8, you just touch the throttle, you go. With this, you really got to mash it to make it go. We got our S-Pod switches up here. We got a super chips. I believe that's a trail dash here. Now this is really pathetic. I'm about half throttle right now. I don't give my impressions on superchargers very often, but what I can tell you is it's not very pleasant. Just the sound, the power delivery. You move the throttle a little, nothing happens. You move it a little more, nothing happens. You move it a little more, then a lot happens. It's not linear like a V8. Now what I'm checking right now is air conditioning, brakes, steering. Our air's on and it's working. Let's try our cruise. Our cruise is working. We got no lights on the dash. Actually, the supercharger for a V6 3.8 is probably better than average. I drive a lot of them and I get used to the little flat spots and hesitations, and this one's not too bad. I don't even know what he's running for an operating system, but it's not too bad. But it does still have, I mean, you can see I'm really revving it up trying to make it move, and it's making a lot of weird, not weird, but unpleasant noises. Nothing like a V8. You get in a V8, you get that sound, just a little bit of throttle and your vehicle goes. So we got some tire noise. Steering wheel's pretty straight, a little bit off. That's full throttle, and that's pathetic. I would say there's no torque steer, but there's not enough torque there to really judge it. Certainly no brake steer, so we're good there. We get a lot of them in where the track bars are off, and they're a handful. But this one's not too bad. So wow, that's pathetic. Not only very low power delivery, but the transmission shift quality leaves a lot to be desired. When he gets this vehicle back, he won't recognize it. It'll drive like that Yukon in front of us. It'll be smooth, quiet. Power delivery will be linear. When you get on it, it's going to sound aggressive. I love driving superchargers like this because the before and after are just so dramatic. Like right now, I'm just trying to keep up here, and I'm pushing and pushing the throttle, and there, now the power comes in, and now I got to let off because the boost came in. Just not a very pleasant drivability experience. So you guys will watch us tear this one down and see how it comes out in the end. I did want to mention this one also has a Rubicrawler. Those aren't Atlas levers. The Rubicrawler is essentially a unit that goes between the transfer case and the transmission, and it gives you a high-low. So basically the left lever here is our 241J, which is 2 high, 4 high, neutral, and low, and the right side is the Rubicrawler high-low gearbox. He was concerned about off-road low ratio with a new setup, and when he drives an LS with a 6L80 with a 4-to-1 low and 400 foot-pounds of torque, he's not going to worry about the low ratio anymore. So we're going to be getting rid of this rubicrawler and modifying the 241J to handle the power, and then he'll have a single lever. So he's got a lot of add-ons on this. I've seen a lot more. Just looking at this mirror here, we had a customer in recently with an electronic mirror. These mirrors, you can look around, like if you have cameras around your vehicle. And again, this is another interference that we're going to have to deal with. But I've had these mirrors cause draws. Most of the guys hook them up to their S-Pods, and they have a 100-200 milliamp draw, and then you wonder why your battery's going dead. So if you have one of these mirrors, just make sure it's hooked up properly so you don't have that draw. And then you can see here he's got roof lights, reverse lights, driving lights, other stuff on his S-Pod. And these are all the things that normally we have to go in and clean up, depending on how well it's been done. We got a CB radio, and there's probably other stuff hidden in here that we don't even know about under the seats and in other places. And those are the things that we run into in these swaps that must work perfectly when it leaves here. So not only do we end up doing the swap, but we end up doing a lot of cleaning up. Now, I'm not saying on this particular vehicle anything's been done right or wrong. I'm saying that this is a typical vehicle that a customer brings in with all these interferences that we do have to deal with and work around. So we'll go through this build and show you guys the process.